What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is we're up over 100 episodes. We got new music, new artists, new stories, and just having a blast doing it. Like I was just saying the other day, it's crazy that 3 years ago now, back in 2020 in the pandemic, is when I started this whole thing. And it's just been such a wild ride, and I've opened so many new doors, made so many new friends, and made so many new connections. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm just going to keep doing this until I can't find any more artists, which I don't think is ever going to be a problem. And today I got a super talented country singer songwriter here, and I got Erica Brighthill. Erica, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
And not too bad, not too bad at all. Like I said, it always means a lot when artists take time out of their day to be here just to talk about their story through music, talk about their journey, and just kind of what the future holds for them, and just kind of what their whole process is like too. Because I always say is you can sit here and listen to all these amazing artists on Spotify, Apple Music, but to me, the thing that's really cool is to hear their story, to hear how they create music, on how they first started in music, and then kind of what their future is going to hold for them. So just thank you for taking time to be here today.
Well, I appreciate you having me because it's amazing to get the platform to also talk about our story and talk about our music, and for people not just to listen to it, like you said, but really hear the backstory on who we are.
Yeah, no, exactly. And really, to kind of start that whole story is always the first question that I ask. And it's kind of the basic of basics, but it's where did singing and playing really come about for you? Because I know for some people, it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes, then eventually they pick up their first guitar and stuff like that. But I like to compare it to the other half of people is like myself. I only started the whole songwriting process and the whole music industry stuff back in 2018, which was about 5 years ago now. So it's just kind of crazy how people can start so early and then some people can start so late. But for you, where did everything start?
Yeah, well, I relate to what you're saying because for me, I thought I was kind of like late in the game as well. So I always loved it from a young age. Like if I could be singing, I wanted to be singing. And my mom had a couple of her best friends who were in the music industry. I would always see them and like be on stage, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. But for some reason, lessons, like singing lessons, weren't really a thing. It was more like dancing.
Yeah.
My parents would put me into dance and into sports, and it was like it wasn't my thing though. Like I would do it, but it was so different. I just wish they would have put me into singing lessons so I could have like performed. But it was like, no, like you're not gonna be a singer. Like it just wasn't realistic to them. Not that being a dancer is more, you know what I mean? Like anyway. So but like then I would sing around my friends and they'd be like, "Oh, you're actually good, you know? Like you should do some talent shows and stuff like that." So then in high school, when I was 16 or 17, I was supposed to dance in the show. So I invited like my friends, my family, but my friends knew I was also going to be singing in that show, but my family didn't know. So this was the first like time I like decided, okay, like I'm actually doing this in front of people more seriously. And then honestly, from then I just got like a couple more opportunities with the school. They were like, oh, like she's good. So I sang like the national anthem for our graduation. And then there was contests. So they'd like tell me like, okay, like audition for that. So it just like opened other doors.
Yeah.
And then I started doing, like I said, a couple of contests. And I decided to take singing lessons, which I had always wanted to do, but like it was different starting at like 17, 18. And then I actually like fell in love with it. I was in university after that, and I thought I was going to have a completely different career. Like I was going to be a teacher, and that's it, that's all. But now, like everything shifted, and now I'm just doing music full time. So it was definitely eye-opening, and I wouldn't have it any other way, obviously, because that's who I am today because of that. I do wish I could have started earlier, but I'm really happy of where it all brought me, even though I started later.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. I mean, you honestly, you just have to take a shot in the dark sometimes with it because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And I live and breathe by that quote just because when I started writing music, like I never thought it was going to pan out. Like I've always loved, especially country music. Like I always growing up listening to it. My mom would be playing like that 90s, early 2000s country, like cleaning the house and stuff like that. And to just be jamming out. And like I've just always loved being able to tell good stories and just hear other people's raw authenticity when it comes to singing and songwriting. So it's really cool, like I said, to just hear how people start in the
Yeah.
music industry, because it is such a hard industry to get into.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And even like the confidence building and all that, because like at the beginning, right, you're like comparing yourself and you haven't like done it for so long. But honestly, like if you love it, it's just so worth it.
No, exactly. And like there are so many super talented artists out there too that like you look up to, and that you always like when you're a kid, like you listen to them and you want to be like, hey, like I want to be just like them. And I
Yeah.
always like to shout out, because hopefully maybe one day that he'll hear this, is Chris Daughtry, all-time favorite artist right there. And one of these days someone's gonna be like, yo, Chris, this kid keeps shouting you out on his podcast. Like you need to go talk to him. But it's just like, and even going into the country music scene is like Tim McGraw, Garth Brooks, Travis Tritt, just all of them, and Carrie Underwood, Miranda Lambert. Like I could just go on for hours. And this kind of leads into the next question, because I always find it cool to see who other artists actually look up to in the music industry. So for you, when it comes to singing and songwriting, who are some of your inspirations in the music industry today?
Yeah. So for me, like growing up, it was Shania Twain.
Mhm.
She's also Canadian. So she was like our Canadian icon country singer, and it was just the songs that I sang all the time with a hairbrush growing up. And then growing up a little bit more, it got like Carrie Underwood, and still to this day, she's like my number one. I just like relate to her a lot because she's so classy and like the way she does everything. And yes, she can like have a song about like killing someone and all these like badass songs, but like at the end of the day, like she's so classy.
Yeah.
So I relate to that a lot. And she's like family oriented, like very like valued, and I feel like she's just like genuinely like a good person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's always something that like I feel like it's super important to stay true to your roots, and it's not because you become big or anything like that that you should necessarily change how you are as a person. So I think that's a really big one for me for her. And I also really like Maddie and Tay. I really, really relate to their songs, probably like the most out of like all the other artists. Yeah, their songs just, I don't even know how to explain it. They're just so relatable to me, and the way they write their songs. It's like I couldn't say it better myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what draws me into a lot of these artists, is because of their songwriting capabilities. Because
Mhm.
just to be able to sit there and tell a story, that's always what I try to do when I sit down to write a song, whether I'm doing it by myself or if I'm collabing and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it just, the creative process is just so unique and so crazy, because as an artist, you probably know, and as any artist that listens to this knows, there is no right way to write a song. There's
Mhm.
no rhyme or reason. Like it's some days it starts with the melody and then the lyrics come from that. Or someone like myself, like it starts with the lyrics and then the melody comes later.
Yeah.
And I always have to quote Brick Walker, who was on the show. He said it perfectly, and I've been quoting him for almost 2 years now, ever since he said this on the podcast, is the songwriting process is like a puzzle, whether you have that 100 piece, 200 piece, 500 piece, whatever kind of puzzle, and you have all of them scattered on the table trying to figure out what fits where. And then slowly, piece by piece, you start putting the border together, you start putting the middle together. And
Yeah.
then by the end, you have this full masterpiece. And that's just what makes the creative process in songwriting so cool and so unique, because it takes some time. Sometimes it might take an hour for you to write one song, it might take you 3 years to write the next song.
Exactly.
And it's always a crazy process, and that's why I love asking this third question here, is what is your process like when it comes to creating music?
Yeah, so exactly like you said, it's never the same thing. Like for me, it's always different. Like it could be I'm in the car and I get an idea and I'll stop and I'll record it, or like it's like it depends so much on like what's going on. But for me, like I think the main thing that always comes back is I don't ever write songs that I'm not like relating to, you know what I mean? Like I'm very, very picky about like what I put out. It really needs to be related to what I'm going through, and like who I am as a person.
Yeah.
I'm very, very picky with that. Yeah, so like for me just different, but I really love writing with other people and getting their perspective on things. Because everyone has a different way of doing things, and I feel like you can get an idea and then you're writing with another person and they just like, it's like they read your mind and you come up with this like really cool thing together.
Yeah.
I really love co-writing because I just think it's like two minds can create so much.
Yeah.
Teamwork is always super good. But for myself, like when I come up with ideas, it's more like on my phone, I'll just like record it. It's pretty much like how it goes most of the time. Or
No,
in the middle of the night waking up and then I'll just like write something in my notes. And I'm like, what does that even mean? But like hooks come from that, when you have like a bunch of like hooks just like sitting in your notes and then you go into a co-write and you're okay, like what do you want to write and about? And then you like sometimes you just like go into your hooks and you're like, oh my gosh, like this one time, and you start talking and then you go into a song. Like it doesn't even have to do with like necessarily the idea you had anymore, just developed into something completely new, which is like the beauty of it. You never know where it's gonna go.
Exactly. Like you never know. And honestly, like I was just about to say too, like you said, like sometimes it comes at 1 in the afternoon or sometimes it comes at 1 in the morning. Like it's so random. But when those lines hit you, you need to put the voice memo in and just write those
Yeah.
down and do that. But then, like I said, and like you just said, you go back like to 2 years ago, like you have a voice memo and you listen to it and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? And then you like keep scrolling and like eventually you find one and you're like, oh
Yeah.
shit, like why didn't I think this was better back then? Because it's
Yeah.
awesome now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to keep them all. Like I know some people like are really hard on themselves when they like write, they like, oh no, 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 this is bad. Like I'll throw it out. But honestly, like you could have taken something out of that for another song. Like it's good to kind of like keep everything because you never know when it'll come in handy.
No, exactly. And I mean, obviously, when it comes to songwriting and releasing music and stuff like that, it's hard to really get your name out there sometimes because there's a million artists out there doing the same thing that you're doing. You're not the only songwriter out there. I'm not the only songwriter. And especially when you're on social medias like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that fun stuff. I
Yeah.
always tell people is you're on there when the minute you hit the post button to post about whatever kind of new song that you're coming out with, at the same time as you're hitting that post button, there's 100 other artists hitting that post button at the
Yeah.
same time as you. So it's really hard to just get your name out there and say, hey, this is me, this is who I am. And this is
Mhm.
why I love this question so much. It's my all-time favorite question to ask on the show. And it is a difficult question, but at the end of the day, with all these other artists out there, what makes you you compared to these other artists, and what can we kind of take away from your music that we're not going to find in other artists' music?
Okay, I get what you said. Well, I do think that a lot of people do have similar messages to say in the world, but everyone has a different way of telling their story. And no matter how similar you might seem to someone, like in terms of looks or in terms of how you sound, but no one's lived your life. Like no one will ever walk what you've walked, right? So I find like just that in itself is unique. And you can do anything like relating to your music that no one else can do, right? Because you're you. And whatever experiences you go through, um, someone might relate. So you'll come out with a song, and let's say it's about something bad that happened to you. Well, not everyone will relate to that song because not everyone went through something similar like that, but some people will. And then you'll come out with another song, maybe, and then some other people will relate. So it just like I find it's that's what makes you unique. I just feel like your story makes you unique. Nothing else, because no one can have the same story as you. No one's lived your life.
No, exactly. And that's what it's all about. That's why I love asking that question because it really just defines who an artist is because you're just you at the end of the day. You're Erica Brighthill. I'm ACK. Like we're our own two different people. And that's what it's all about is just being able to share those stories. And yeah, you're not going to connect with everyone on some songs, but then you write another song and it connects with that other half. And honestly, I tell people all the time is when I write a song, yeah, it would be great to connect with a million people, but for me, honestly, like personally, like just to connect with that one or two people, to be able to reach out and say, like, hey, like this song, like I've been going through some of the same stuff. Like it's really helped me along my journey because I've had similar stuff. That's what makes me feel like I've done a successful job songwriting, because it's just being that your real self and being authentic and being genuine and connecting with people on a personal level. Because sometimes when these artists get to that fame and height of all kinds of different proportions, they start to kind of lose that touch with the audience sometimes, I feel like. And that's what really drives me away sometimes from a lot of bigger name artists. And that's why I love talking to more independent artists and artists that are kind of in the middle process of not like doing things. And that's what it's all about, is just being able to connect with your audience.
Yeah, and I agree with that because like you said, like we said, like one song might relate to certain people and another song might relate to other people. But if they connected with you on one song, the chances are they will want to hear the other stuff. And they might not have gone through what the other song talks about, but they'll learn about your story and maybe that'll make them think of someone else, or maybe at one point in their life they will be going through that, because all have times where we relate to certain songs more than others, and then we're going through another episode in our life and we relate more to other songs. So it's all about like the different episodes on of what we're going through in our life. But I just think that like we said, like what makes us unique is our story and what we've been through.
No, absolutely. And kind of getting to the fifth and final question here before we hear some music from you, which is always my favorite part of the interview, is just kind of looking towards your future a little bit now. Obviously, I know your first single you had released was in 2020. That was Still Small Voice. And then
Yeah.
in 2021, which is the one that we're going to take a sneak peek to, is Girls Don't Need a Guy to Dance. So you have those two singles out, but kind of looking towards your future a little bit, is what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and just what else can we expect down the road from you?
Yeah, so actually I was hoping to have released music in like 2022, and just like more recently
Mhm.
I got an injury, a vocal injury. So it did I had to take a break for like a year. So now I'm finally like good. I actually like just went for a minor surgery last week. So they're taking out the polyp that I had on my vocal cord. So now I'm like clear to sing and just like go back to normal.
Yeah.
So it's been like a rough patch because when it's like what you do, like and what you love, I couldn't release music, I couldn't do shows. So I've just been starting back out slowly the last like 3 to 4 months, which I'm just like really glad it's over and that I can start releasing music again. So I'm coming out with a new single very soon in the next like couple of months. And I'm just hoping to keep releasing music, keep playing more shows. And, just like a big thing, I think, with like artists, like whether you're from wherever you're from, it's just to like become like the biggest fish in your pond kind of thing, Because like we were talking about, like it's so hard to you can't like connect with everyone in the world. Like there's so many artists and stuff, but just like starting to connect like with your local community, with your like, you know what I mean? Like the people around you, and then you kind of grow that. And then when you outgrow that, well, then you venture out a little bit more too. So I think like that's the main thing that I'm working on is just like being the most being with the most like connections I have like around me
Yeah.
before moving on to like bigger things.
No, absolutely.
Shows and releasing music is pretty much the plan. And the new single is going to be coming out soon.
No, that's awesome. I mean, because the two songs that you do have out, I've been jamming out to them for the last like couple of days, just getting ready for the interview and stuff like that. And I love what you're doing. And honestly, I just can't wait for the new music and to see what else comes for you. But like, I totally get what you're saying about just kind of being like the biggest fish in your pond and whatever, and like growing your own identity around where you are, because that's exactly how I started this podcast. Is I started with interviewing artists from up here in like Massachusetts and New England area, and then slowly I started going to Nashville because I was like, okay, at least that's kind of like my home away from home. And then all of a sudden I'm interviewing artists up in Canada, I'm interviewing artists out in Ireland, over in Australia,
It's
and
so cool.
it's so cool. But like I love the journey that artists take, and I just can't wait to see where your journey goes, and I'm along for the ride with you.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
No, of course. So kind of getting to the fun part now is hearing a little sneak peek of a song that you have out, which is Girls Don't Need a Guy to Dance. But kind of before we take a little listen to that, what is kind of the backstory on the song?
Yeah, so I was in a relationship for 8 years before releasing this song. And it was like my first time being single because I was 15 when I started dating him. And then it ended, and I was like, honestly, now this is about like my identity and me finding who I am again. So it's just about like not needing a man to do anything you want in your life and just having fun with your girls and really enjoying that part of my life. And it's more like you because you want someone at the end of the day, but not because you need someone. Well, yeah.
No, and that's awesome. And like I said, like I've been jamming out to both these songs for the last like couple of days now. So I'm super excited to dive into this one. So kind of without further ado, we're gonna take a little sneak peek of Erica Brightill's song, Girls Don't Need a Guy to Dance. So that's a little sneak peek of Girls Don't Need a Guy to Dance. I mean, it's always hard for me to play music on my end because I want to sit here and jam out. But if I start singing, then like glass will start breaking from my windows and all that fun stuff. But I mean, you can definitely sing, you can definitely write, and you're an artist, Erica, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me today.
No, of course. So that kind of really concludes everything I have for you today. But kind of before I do my little outro here, is where can people go check you out on social medias and all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. So it's pretty easy. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, my website, everything's Erica Brighthill. So very simple. And my music, Spotify, all streaming platforms, it's available.
Perfect. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I love it. Definitely people go check out Erica Brighthill on all streaming platforms. Go check out her social medias. Super, super talented songwriter. And again, Erica, just thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here.
Thanks for having me.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got new music, new stories, new artists. Never know who's going to pop through. So y'all stay tuned for next week and thanks for tuning in today.